Hello everyone, welcome to the first video of Rhino Lab Assignment 5, in which we learn how to go from this, which is a couple of images that depict Tadao Ando's 4x4 house in Kobe, Japan. This is a very simple project, and it's a good starting point to learn how to go from standard, plan sections, elevation drawings, and to be able to build a 3D model off of this. Now, all of these images will be provided to you in a zip file as part of the assignment, and to begin from there and get to something like this, which is a full 3D model of everything in the sort of rough 3D model of the building. Okay. So let's begin. Now, the first thing that might be a little bit different here at first is that this project, its namesake, 4x4, means the sort of plan is 4 meters by 4 meters. So its plan is actually really not that big. It's 4 meters by 4 meters, a perfect square, more or less. And so this is actually a metric project. So you'll have to actually model this in metric, which is really easy. It's a lot simpler than the imperial system. But because of that, the new file that you open in Rhino, for example, if I open a new template file, I will open the one that's small objects centimeters. Right? If you don't have the templates in Circa, then just do units. Type units to pull up the units dialog box, and just change your model units to centimeters. Absolute tolerance should be this 0.001. Say okay, and no, it'll do it as long as you don't have geometry in there. Okay, so that's how you set up your file for the right units, and that's really important because we're going to scale the background image. So I'm going to be doing most of this in the top view here. And the image that I'll be using to kind of work with that is going to be this one, right? The house plans. And they're very simple house plans, and you're going to use this to kind of reconstruct the plans first. And there generally are two kind of approaches to doing something like this. You can actually do work off of the elevations and sort of work that way. Reverse engineer the project by drawing the sort of exterior but then going inside. But generally, for the most part, because not all projects are this simple volumetrically, it's easier to actually do it with the plans and then sort of coordinate and cross-reference the elevations to figure out if there's any sort of inconsistencies or middle height walls that are in between. So that's why we're showing sort of plan-centric workflow here at first. Okay. All right. So let's insert the JPEG into here. Right. So I'll actually do this sort of off to the side because I know eventually I want to put my 3D model sort of closer over there. So if you click here and go to background bitmap and place, it will pull up the sort of insert open bitmap dialog box, and just click on the plans image wherever you put it or wherever you downloaded it. Right, open it, and it will ask you to insert it. So you just sort of drag and sort of pick a first corner, and don't worry too much. Now you'll notice that I actually here under the background bitmap I have the grayscale toggle on. If you untoggle it, it'll turn into the color version, but I prefer to have this as grayscale so it doesn't actually interfere too much. So just turn the grayscale toggle on, and this will be a sort of grayscale image. All right. Now we're going to have to rescale this, obviously. These colors, these sort of layers, I start renaming them at first, and so this first one, this is red, so I'll call this walls. This default layer I'll call annotate. And I'll sometimes I'll just make a layer that's sort of like a temporary layer, which I put on construction geometry, right? So with that sort of temporary layer on, I'll just draw a line, or actually just draw a rectangle, depending on what you're trying to do. Zoom into the sort of lower left corner, yeah, you know, just as close as you can. And remember, because we're drawing, this is in centimeters, right? So 4 meters is 400 centimeters. Basically, it's, you know, 1 meter is 100 centimeters, and that's it. So 400 by 400. And let's just see how far, oh yeah, we're really far off. So distance, just to measure that really quick, oh, that's 400 centimeters. So we need to scale this up by a lot, right? Okay. So in the background bitmap, there's actually a scale option, right? Now, this actually is going to depend on you putting this sort of corner as close, sort of like there, as close as possible, okay? So top, background bitmap, scale. And it'll ask you for an origin point. So the origin point we're going to use is actually this corner that you just sort of put down, okay? It'll ask you scale factor or first reference point. So my first reference point is going to be wherever, sort of on this line, on this sort of horizontal, but as close to that side right there as possible. And then zoom out and just sort of drag it so it snaps to the corner of the 400 by 400 square that you just drew. And that's it. Right, so that's more or less matched. You will notice that the sort of vertical dimension is a little bit off, right? And that's just like because it's a JPEG and, you know, stuff happens. But because we know for a fact that this is a 400 by 400 house, we're just going to use that. I am actually just going to select this sort of wall or this sort of a square and move it to the walls layer. So right click on the walls layer with it selected and say change object layer. So it shows up as red. Okay. Let me see. Red. I actually like the brighter red for this. All right. So I'm going to assume that this is the sort of red walls. These are basically structural walls. They're cuts, right? The things that you actually see. So one of the things I do, in particular with something like this, is that you will, if you're using, you know, a background bitmap or something that's not a CAD file, right, and you're sort of tracing it, what you always want to do when you're sort of redrawing or retracing it is to try to rationalize the dimensions. What does that mean? That means that wall thicknesses that seem to be the same are the same, and you draw them as such, right? So if I just use a simple line and let me see, my mid snap on. So for example, if I draw this outwards, I'm trying to get a sense of like how thick this wall should be, and not give it like an arbitrary number. Like if you just sort of click anywhere, you'll get a really weird dimension, like, you know, 21 blah blah blah, which, you know, in sort of real construction terms is really problematic, right? Because, you know, your workers aren't construction workers. They're not going to do a wall that's 23.492 centimeters thick, right? You need some nice rounded dimensions for all this stuff. So it's a good idea to basically, you know, try to round things out. So like these sort of smaller inner walls, you know, I will probably just do 10 in this case, because there's a little fuzziness in the image, right? And so I'll tell you for a fact that all these sort of interior, these sort of walls, we'll use 10 for them, and then these sort of outer walls will use 25, right? Just so you know. So unless you have like a, you know, real building to measure, you know, just sort of do your best guess, but make sure that your dimensions kind of make sense. So right off the bat, I'm actually just going to offset this curve inwards, okay? And with the distance here, I'm going to click on the distance, and instead of a 2, I'm actually just going to type 25, right? And you'll see that it shows you which direction your curve gets offset. So I'm going to offset it inwards. Oh, and actually I forgot to switch my current layer to the walls layer. So I'm going to change that over as well, and you should do that as well. So this is basically starting that sort of basic sort of small framework for this. The door should be in most cases roughly centered, basically centered on the symmetrical axis, right? So I'm just actually just going to draw a line down the center, snapping to the sort of mid point, and draw a straight line down the center, and just like leave it there. I'll kind of use that as reference. So this door is about 80 centimeters wide, so 40 on each side, and it's sort of centered. So I will actually just do this and move my cursor out there, 40, and actually just to draw a line that goes all the way, and actually turn on my intersection snap here all the way, and then I'll use that and actually just mirror this. Mirror, and using the sort of central axis as a plane and mirror it to the other side. And you'll start to see things don't perfectly align with the sort of background bitmap drawing anymore, but as long as you're sort of keeping to the rough correct sort of big things, it's fine. You just want to kind of construct something that makes sense geometrically and dimensionally, right? So these sort of small walls, you can use the offset, as well for them. So offset and then distance 10. So give it thickness, give that thickness. So this opening is about 190 centimeters from there. So I'm just going to use the L. Probably start drawing a line. And the way I kind of do this is I hover over like this sort of reference point first, and then I drag my cursor upwards, and you'll see it kind of gives me a sort of display on the tooltip about roughly how many centimeters from that sort of initial anchor point that you hovered over first is. So it shows me 188, right? So I'll type in 190 here, and it actually starts the line there, right? So this is actually something that you should get used to using. It's really, really helpful. To do that again, zoom in and hover over there first. Start the command and hover over it first, and then sort of drag it this way. And this door is 70 wide, so just type in 70, and it will start drawing at 70 off, right? So this here to here, that's 70. That's a technique I use a lot, and it's really, really, really useful. Okay, so like here, I'll select these two guys and use the trim command to trim that off, right? Just so you have a beginning. I'm actually just going to align these just to kind of simplify the drawing a little bit. Okay, so this opening is going to sort of end there, as well as this. Now the interesting thing about this sort of stairwell is that it probably is at the center point of these. Here, let me trim that off really quick. So the width of this, and that's the sort of midpoint, right? So if let's just say like this wall is also 10, right? So this length. And you'll see that you can if you have the tooltips on, it'll tell you how long that really is, right? So here I'll just say 125, roughly. And then I'll just actually just offset it both sides with a distance of 5 to get 10. So click it that way, repeat it, and go that way. I can delete the center one now. And just close that off. Close that off and delete this. Take that and join it. Okay. Let's trim this guy off. There's a couple walls we need to get in place. So this one is going down 70. Here, and actually I should have drawn the longer line, so So let's do that again. Snap there, go down, type in 70, drag it out horizontally, and let's guess that's 75. Actually, let's align this to this top. So you do that, come down. So this is actually the bottom. Let's just copy that upwards, 10. Making sure that like you're keeping your sort of thicknesses consistent, right? Resume it. Let's go down. Let's just say 40. 10. Swing it back and close it. This is. So you'll see I use this sort of drag by starting the line command, hovering over to put down an anchor, and then sort of dragging in a direction a lot. And so this is close to what, 26? So let's do 25. Right? And then copy this horizontally. You can use offset, or you can use copy, or you can hold down this. Use the copy gumball method if you want. I just use copy. 10. Okay, so that's there, and let's draw in this wall. So this draw, drag it upwards. Let's say about here. 137, so 140. Horizontally, let's go 65, up 10, and swing it back. Okay, so that's most of the major interior partitions. The openings are there. We just have the windows. Okay, so same thing. I'll sort of hover over the corner and go upwards. Let's do actually, let's do 45 and draw that. These are 30 wide, so copy this upwards. 30, right? And if you know this is symmetrical, you can actually you can copy it over, or I use this just basically. I select this, and I use the mirror command to basically mirror it to the other side, right? This is actually at the corner, so just draw that, and then copy this down 30. All right, so that's most of what we need for now for that sort of first floor. At this point, I go to the background bitmap again, and I just actually hide it, so I can see my lines a little bit better, and we're going to clean things up a little bit. So just sort of we're wanting the structural outline of things, so I'll use the trim command to clean things up. You can select all that and trim, and do that, for example, right? This, you want to kind of cut that off, so you can just select all the sort of associated lines, use the trim command, and click on the segments that you don't want, right? So select those two, trim, and delete, or just sort of trim it off. So that actually makes sort of doing this sometimes really quick and easy. You just kind of have to remember what the plan or what sort of you're trying to get at, right? Let's do this first. So there's nothing there. There's nothing. Oops. Nope. And you can actually, if you accidentally trim something and you want it back, you can undo or Control Z to kind of get it back, right? I want to trim off those corners first. You can leave the plan in here if you can see. I'm just sort of doing this so you can see things a little better. That's done. This is, actually I did this wrong, so I'm going to extend this back here. So these guys, I think, trim that. This, delete this guy, and trim off that. Okay, so all of these should be, and let's just join everything. These are all closed curves. Okay, let's get the background bitmap back. So go back to where you were, show, and comes back. All right, now I leave this sort of midline in place because it can help us eventually. And what I do is, what you're kind of actually set with the plan, this sort of first floor plan, and all you have to do, because a lot of things are already there and they're very similar, you just might have to move things around a little bit, is to just copy this whole thing and let's see, try to align it, but make sure it's horizontal or sort of like on ortho, right? Try to align it roughly. The main thing is that you're really not tracing the plan as much as you're just sort of using the plan as a reference to kind of guide you, right? And so you'll see that, okay, you know, this obviously you have things you will want to fix and stuff that needs to go away, right? So this, but you know, you have the outer framework. These don't change because these are windows and you want them to be aligned. So let's go through and just fix some of this stuff. Right off the bat, you can probably just like, select this all and explode everything. And we'll just delete stuff that I don't need. So this I don't need, this I don't need. You're actually wanting to connect this. So you can just delete that stuff out and then extend that as a boundary object and get that all the way through, right? These we don't need that. Extend, or you know, actually connect as well you can use, so this curve to this curve, right, and automatically connects it. Okay, so something like this, I know that I actually want to move this opening over there, so instead of, I mean, you can draw the lines and delete and just sort of fix that, or sometimes what I do is actually I just select all of these lines going from the lower right to upper left, and I turn on the edit points. You may want the gumball off for this, and I select these and I just move it, and what that does, it moves all the edit points, so you know that has the same sort of topology, and this is about 160. Just remember to move it in a sort of standard whole number instead of some arbitrary number, right? Now this I know was, I think this was 30 wide before, so we have to basically move this a bit more. So let's do, let's say 40. So that's that. So you know, you kind of get the idea. I'm just sort of going through and fixing what, extend this to here and trim this off. I'm just sort of going through and rematching the plan and just deleting things that are not there. But because you already have something that you can work with, it just makes the sort of whole process a lot easier. Actually, this wall I still wanted, so you know, this is why you kind of have things there, actually, because you can actually use your old stuff as a reference. Take that line and just trim off that. So you're left with this, and explode it. Select this curve, delete it out. Okay. So this guy, F10. And let's move these down a certain amount, let's say 80. Sounds like a nice number. Trim this off. And I think that's actually it for this plan. Alright, so same thing, select everything, join it all, make sure that these are all closed curves, right? But because you're sort of copying and building off of that, this sort of guarantees that eventually, you know, when you kind of move over things will align. So select everything, copy. Something like that. Okay. So there's not much editing there. There's this. So here, let's explode that. Let's extend this to there. This actually I will take and just mirror it off of that sort of center line, because that basically is that. Use these two lines to trim off the center. Trim this. And all of this is more or less in place besides that. So explode this. Whoops. Explode this as well. Extend that line. Take that, trim this off. Delete. Explode. Delete this. Extend. And then trim that off. Okay. We're set for this floor. Join everything back. Those are all closed. Okay. So the last little floor is a little bit trickier. So let's copy this over. Okay. And let's take a look. So this sort of offset, right, because the sort of top cube kind of shifts to the right and down. But you'll notice that this part of the wall actually got wider, right, and it gets wide into the sort of width of actually the exterior walls. So this is actually becomes a 25, right? So what you'll probably do is basically expand this off the center line. So don't move its position. So this is still sort of a central axis for it, right? And basically what you can do is, I mean, there are multiple ways to do it. I'm just going to actually copy this 25 to the side. And I know that's the width of the wall that I'm actually eventually looking for. And move this over here for now. And then turn on my edit points. Move these two so they're 25 all wide. And then, because I have my center snap, right, I can use this to snap it back into place. All right. So this is just construction geometry. But now in the same place, right, I have on the same sort of central axis, I have a wall that's now basically 25 wide. I mean, there are a lot of different ways you could have done that, but that's just what I do. All right. So to get this. That's the other dimension, right? Let's just copy this down. And let's move it. Let's see how wide this is. Just move this down, I don't know, 15 maybe, it looks like. And this side, actually, I know that this is actually a 75 centimeter offset. So I'm just going to draw a line, copy this down, actually 75, so I know, okay, that's where it wants to end in real dimensions, okay? So same thing, F10, turn on your edit points, select these two guys, move it until it snaps. And that's the sort of lower boundary of that. At this point, you can basically say, you know, take these two guys, right? And sort of copy it over. Now, because the offset is the same relationship, so I can actually just use copy here. Select these two guys, copy, and use that as the snapping point, and just go horizontal, snap over there, and these should be in the right position, except for that sort of window opening. Now that looks right, so we just have to make the window opening wider. This was what, 15, right? So distance, I think this was 15. Yeah, okay. So select this one, F10, take those 2 points, move them down. Yeah, 55. Right, that's a nice round number. And this guy, you can delete it. That just sort of leave it in place. Actually, this we'll need to make shorter. So this band is also 25 wide. So draw a line, snap to that point, or hover over that point, go down a little, type 25, and draw a horizontal line. And that's where it should be. So turn on edit points. Simple, easy. Alright, you're pretty much done with most of the information we need. Actually, make sure that I copy this axis over in the right place, because I'm going to need it later on to kind of align things. That's most of the structure done, which is mostly what you need. Now, I usually, here, I'm just actually going to do a new layer called elevation, make it light gray, or maybe slightly darker. And I just sort of fill in some of the information, actually make it active. Right? I fill in some of the information that you might want. And you can actually start out drawing it in, I know, like a stronger color, so you can see it. But there's just like some stuff that's basically like, the transitions between floor finishes sort of makes sense to draw out, and especially the sort of lines that are on the outer boundaries. I sort of go through and basically kind of complete the plan as a drawing, not as a model. Sometimes it'll just give you a little bit more information you need. Now, what's actually more critical is really the stairs. With the stairs, you'll see that there's a tiny little sort of setback between the end of the wall and the stairs. So I'll just actually do a 5 centimeter setback from there, and just draw a line first. Doesn't really matter, and then move it down. If you want to use the gumball, you can click on the green -5, right? So this is going to be basically the setup for your stairs. So I'm just going to copy this downwards here, 17.75, and just keep on duplicating it as we go. 4, 5, 6. That's roughly how many steps there are. And to make things faster, I'll just use the sort of central wall to trim off everything else. Okay? Now, because the stairs generally are roughly in the same position, although these are a little wider, right? So what you can do is actually just like try to select all the lines you just drew and copy them off of the midpoint of the wall on the top here. Copy them over. They should align except for because like the sort of wall width was a little bit different, right? So then you can use the extend command, select the wall, enter, and then just do these all together, right? And same thing. Well, here because of the sort of plan cut, you can delete that one. Same thing. Actually, try not to select the wall itself. Copy, use the midpoint, copy it over, and they should roughly fall in the same place. Sometimes, except for this bottom one, right? Because this is actually going down into the basement, so maybe it just started earlier. That step would start earlier. Okay, so that's about it for these sort of scene elevation lines that we're looking at. The other thing we probably want to do is actually, I'm going to both switch this color back to something a little bit less, maybe white, okay, less conspicuous, but also I want to actually draw in, and actually this needs to be mirrored over these guys, draw in the cut line for the stairs here. And to do that, I'll actually switch back to the annotation layer, draw a line. What I do is actually I do a slash that looks like this, right? I'll use this sort of center point and just go up maybe 5, and then mirror it as well that way, and then just draw and actually turn on the perpendicular snap here, so you can make that perpendicular, right? Then use these two to trim off the center. Okay, so then you join these guys together and you have a cut line. Copy this over, this probably needs to be mirrored over as well. Okay, then obviously you can do the sort of like arrow stuff, like the standard nomenclature for this. Let's do a 3, little circle, right, and just draw it upwards. And I just wing this sometimes, usually explode it and then just mirror this guy. Right. You can group these if you want to. Right. So this eventually you'll have the sort of arrows doing different things. And I'll just sort of do this and fast forward it. Alright, I'm done with my arrows, and I'm actually just going to put in the text for it. So here you have the text object, and say up, aerial, curves, group objects. I don't know how big that is. Let's see. No, that's about right. Okay, so just place that. Once you're done, you can actually just use that and copy that, using that as a sort of reference point, and just put it here and here, right? Then do the same command again, and then say down, DN, and position that over there, or you can try to align things a little better if you want to, right? Same thing, copy it over, just to kind of complete the plan. This only goes down. All right. So last thing I'm going to add here is actually just the sort of window mullions and glass, and that's really quick and easy. So I'm going to make a layer, make it purple, call it aluminum, for example, and another layer, call it glass, and make that layer, let's say, lavender. Okay. Oh, actually, nah, let's do blue. Blue. Okay. Now these mullions are just simple 5x5 rectangles. 5, and you just sort of position them using the midpoint snap and snapping to the middle of that sort of window, and use the mirror command to select it, MI, and then sort of snapping to the midpoints of that, like automatically places it, right? And then you kind of just do the glass and just draw a line between the midpoints of those two, and that sort of represents a window. It's a very rough representation. Obviously you can do much more sort of better ones, but you just sort of do this everywhere. that's really a window. Okay? So I'll fast forward that. So this guy in the center is a slightly larger one, 10 by 10. Just to move it down a little bit. Same thing, just draw glass. If you draw something on the wrong layer, you can always switch it over. Change object layer, switch it back, and do something like that. And copy this over to the other floor. And we're more or less done. If you want, you can make a hatch layer. Let's make it dark, gray. Actually, not dark gray. And if you turn off, make your wall layer the active one and turn off all your other stuff, just so that it's sort of out of the way. These should be joined correctly, right? Yeah, okay. So, hatch, select curves, all these guys, right click, and then solid, say okay. Now I did it on the wrong sort of layer, but no worries. Using the selection filter, select last created, and then just swap them over, change object layer. Oh, these didn't for some reason. Let's make the hatch layer active. Okay, so that was probably just this line messing things up. Right, turn everything back on, and yeah, that's it. That's the plans. We're done with that.